Hey friends, recently Bungie put out some dev insights on the abilities tuning and the armor tuning in the future, as well as the TWAB. Accidentally clicked off there. So I'm just gonna skim through and give you my highlighted notes here on what I found interesting that might change the way I approach PvP on certain subclasses or in general. So let's get after it. Stasis is getting Frost Armor, which is a form of damage resist, a little bit different than the previous Rhyme Overshield, a little bit different than the Chains Resist. It's a stackable bonus, and it's probably going to be more noticeable in PvE than PvP, but it's still going to be very good in PvP, and I might rework some of my builds to take advantage of it. That being said, out of everything I read, there were a couple takeaways. First of which is Cold Snap and its functionality. Even though I read it, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to manifest in game, so I'm just going to have to try it out. In general, if Cold Snaps are consistently hitting the opponent, I'll run that with Osmiomancy or Enhanced Hunter Cold Snap. But if they're still getting stuck into the floor and being RNG, I will switch to something like Claws of Ahamkara or T-Steps or something so I can just play off of my melee instead of my Cold Snap, and then I'll switch to Dustfield or Glacier Nade. I like both of them for different reasons. Next up is when you read Titan. This entire cryoclasm section isn't clear enough for me for exactly how it's going to work. Previously, I didn't have a problem with the nerfed version. By sprinting for a little bit, you eventually build up Cryoslide, and if you use it enough, you know how to spin in a circle on controller or flick your mouse left and right on mouse and keyboard to time the slide when you need the slide to go around a corner. You could also slide cancel with it, so it was incredible. But the way this reads, do I have cryo slide all the time, but it only breaks the crystals on a cooldown? Because that seems a little bit more convoluted. And in general with this, although I think it's fun to use that type of movement, from a competitive sense, the networking just can't handle when your character moves that fast, especially on different surfaces. And with the network connection in there too, it almost appears as if your character is crab walking and rubber bands in place where they need to be, and it's just not a consistent motion. So I can't say it's realistic to track, and I can't even say somebody who gets outgunned by that got skill issued because I don't expect them to hit that. It is easier for the sliding player to win those engagements. Anyway, it can barely handle speed boots, let alone a permanent cryoclasm. I would have rather them just not change this at all, but I'll play with it regardless and I'll have fun with it regardless. Next big one. They finally nerfed Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn, but I'm not sure if it's enough. I can read everything verbatim here, but what they didn't mention is if it still retains its 25% damage bonus, I still assume that it damaged the opponent and heals the user during cast. I mean, they even said they increased the heal on cast from 40 to 300 health points, which is essentially Apotheosis Veil for free, which now makes the Well a more offensive panic super than you pre-place it on the B flag or the zone and just auto win, because the survivability went down from 100 to 50 health points per second. And it says matching restoration too. I wish I had a visual on screen to tell you what that was. I did some napkin math, and I'm pretty sure that if you're using something with target lock or kinetic tremors and the well user misses a shot, there is a chance that you trade. Otherwise, this change right here might make it possible to easier team shot a Well of Radiance user if they try to throw a well in a 1v3. So I still think this is going to be a giant win button for majority of modes, but it's going to be easier to deal with, which is much appreciated. Funny enough, I've started gearing all of my PvP setups when I'm playing competitively to handle Well of Radiance. On Titan and Hunter, I use Pulse Grenades, and on Warlock, I use Sunbracers because the extension allows you to break the Well Sword by just putting a single Sunbracer on it. And so I'm gearing more to cancel the things I dislike than to improve the things I like. However, if we read in this armor tuning preview, they nerfed Sunbracers. So now I can't even do that. And on one hand, I'm a little salty, but on the other, I'm kind of happy because that means I can use other exotics now and not be stuck on Sunbracers just because when people play to win, they use Well or Bubble. So I'm not sure if I like this change for PvP, but any change is appreciated at this point, and they can continue iterating on it. Now, for PvE, this doesn't necessarily change the meta, but you might have an interaction with, let's say, Renewal Grasp or something like that on Hunter, in addition to using the well. Also, Sunbracers are not dead in PvE. They're still going to be incredible, still going to be the best choice, kind of like when Resilience got nerfed, like the stat, and we still just run 10 anyway because it's still the best. So, yeah, I don't know if this is enough of a change, but you might see an odd Renewal Grasp Hunter in addition to Well of Radiance is still persisting there. And on LFG, you might see Ursa Furiosa, Banner, Shield Titans using that instead of Well. We're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to see what the final shape bosses look like. For now, I can say this version of Well, I can still confidently run in all the activities that exist in the game and be perfectly fine by moving around a little bit, maybe putting a barricade and combining it with some teammate abilities. I think it's going to be fine. Word of Dawn. They removed the Armor of Light Overshield, but now give you a full Void Overshield. They didn't say the amount of health on this, by the way. Could be 40, could be 60, could be 100. We don't know. Armor of Light grants damage resistance to the player inside of Word of Dawn, 30% versus enemy players. Once again, since I don't know the Overshield amount, I'm going to have to do some napkin math and some guessing, talking about the effective amount of health points. Previously, you effectively had 600 health points in that bubble. Now, I'm assuming it's going to be around 400. Even if it's just 500, this opens up some options. Right now, we use Conditional Finality Shotgun to handle both Well and Word of Dawn, and it does a fantastic job. When they're frozen, it enhances your melee damage, and you can just punch them out. So, Conditional is still going to be great for this. But what it opens up in addition to is 1-2 punch shotguns, specifically on any frame of shotgun. It no longer has to be, and this is super specific here, it no longer has to be an aggressive or precision frame shotgun where you land some of the pellets on the head and land an enhanced melee like Arc Titan or Arc Hunter. Those are the conditions to not use conditional finality. That's crazy. Another one is the A Sudden Death shotgun with 1-2 punch or trench barrel, because A Sudden Death, just for whatever reason on the origin trait, gets extra damage. You don't have to run those anymore. You could run something like Without Remorse with enhanced 1-2 punch and take advantage of the lightweight frame to move around. Now, I'm assuming most players don't like the lightweight frame because of the one-hit inconsistency, but if you wanted to kill a bubble, this will get the job done, I'm assuming. And I'm kind of excited about that, because now I get to have more variety in my shotguns. Also, enhanced 1-2 punch might be relevant again, because you don't have to land all of the pellets to secure the kill with your melee. Whereas, right now, with the current bubble, since I have to land all 12 pellets to kill the Titan anyway, it doesn't matter if 1-2 punch is enhanced or not. I still think I will ultimately go for a Matador, because aesthetically I like the shotgun, and I'm consistent with it, or it might be a consistent shotgun, so I'm going to have to farm this at some point. I'm not looking forward to that, but maybe I don't have to anymore because of these changes. So I'm very, very happy that they got changed, but I'm not sure if they got changed enough. A giant change for PvP is that Weapons of Light is removed by default. It's been moved to Saint 14 helmet. This is huge. However, in Destiny 1, you had to choose between getting the Overshield and getting the Weapons of Light. And at a certain point in meta progression against top players, they stopped using Weapons of Light and started choosing the Overshield instead, because they found the Overshield more influential to winning the game. However, in Destiny 2, I'm not sure if this is going to hold true, considering that it's so easy to get a Overshield from your barricade that it might be moot anyway. We'll have to wait and see. Destiny 2 is a different game though, so seriously, we're just gonna wait and see. Moving on, Knockout Melee on the Arc section. So previously, Knockout Melee would ignore if your regeneration got shot in PvP, like they punch you while you're punching them, you win, another person punches you, your health points will still go up despite getting punched as the network tries to make sense of what the hell is happening right there. And so instead of that, you're getting a flat 30 health points. And in my opinion, that's just not significant, which is fair for Arc Titan. But when you consider the heavy-handed mod on your gauntlets, make an orb for an ability final blow. However, knockout counts as an ability for some reason, so you can get recuperation on your boots and better already. So an extra 70 health, and you start regeneration because you made an orb from getting the fake ability melee kill. Does that make sense? So in general, 30 points shouldn't be that influential, but having 100 health points and instant regeneration is going to be influential. However, the abilities team mentioned that they're changing the way that powered melee, or armor team, I mean, whatever it is. They mentioned the powered melee is going to be changed in the future, and they imply that something like heavy-handed might not proc on knockout. We will have to, again, wait and see. If it does work, it's still going to be as strong, and you're not even going to notice a difference. If it prevents it from working, this is going to be very insignificant, and you might actually be able to kill a Titan from 1v3ing y'all if he's just punching nonstop, because he's not going to get a full health reset, which is awesome. However, I'm not really happy about this change because they didn't change the annoying part. Sure, getting all your health back or whatever for winning a melee fight, kind of annoying to deal with, but not having a chance in the first place because they're teleporting through space and time with the melee lunge, that feels terrible. So I'm a little disappointed that Knockout didn't lose the melee lunge, or at least in PvP. I wish they had a dial to change that. Maybe they can in the future. Scrolling down to Solar. Hunter Lightweight Knife got a glow up. I've recently enjoyed using these as it is right now because it's a really consistent bow tool for cleaning up bow shots and making bows more viable. And now that you have 2 charges of this by default and the animations faster, I think this is going to be the new Hunter bow setup. On controller, I was appreciating it when I shotgun, or even when I hand cannon. I use the crouch button to move my crosshair down as I hit the melee button, and it just finds their head instantly. Whereas the heavy knife, although it one-shots, you do have to wind it up. So I like lightweight knife because I'm already using my crosshair to shoot my opponent in the face anyway. It just leads to an even freer kill combo or shotgun extension. So even though I already considered this meta, having 2 charges might make this an almost non-decision for me, but we will see. I still like the heavy throwing knife because sometimes you pre-fire it where you expect someone to peek and you get your hit. So I still like it. But lightweight knife might make for a very interesting build on Gemini Jester for me, where I go 10 strength instead of 10 discipline, and then run marksman dodge to have Gemini Jester up more often. Also, I might run it with a bow now. We'll see. Next up is the Swarm Grenade. Said something about Swarm Grenade right here. Swarm Grenade gets increased tracking shape size and longer linger duration. Once again, with lightweight knife, I already considered this a meta option because of how well-rounded it was, and now it just is even better. This, in my opinion, is the grenade you pull out if you're dealing with invis hunters. You throw the swarm at a doorway, and now you don't have to worry about getting flanked because they have to choose between getting hit by all these seekers or not. And 10 to 11 seconds is an eternity when you're playing high, fast-paced matches. High skill. There's other solar stuff that I'm going to skim over. The void stuff I'm going to skim over, except for the Titan shield throw. This is more of a PvE change. But the hairs in the back of my neck are kind of raising here because this seems kind of difficult to anticipate or deal with in PvP. Like, if you know you get hit by a headshot by a hand cannon and you back into cover and you know they have the shield, what do you do to avoid this? There's not really anything you can do, and that's kind of concerning. So if they make it easier to use, it's harder to avoid. Maybe it doesn't do enough damage to be influential, but they also get an overshield from it. Yes, you do have to give up shoulder charge, but I'm erring on the side of this might be too much, but I'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of stuff on this article that's like that for me. Warlock has a improved magnetic grenade whenever you have Chaos Accelerant aspect on. And although I'm not going to use the charge pushback of Chaos Accelerant, what was it called? Back in the day, people used to use them with the gauntlets. I'm not going to edit this. This is going to be one take. Handheld Supernova. That's what it was called. I'm not going to use the handheld Supernova part of it. Once again, I've been playing a lot of controller. The same way that I use the lightweight knife is the same way that I use magnetic grenade. And if I just have a faster cooldown for equipping Chaos Accelerant, I might genuinely consider it. Finally, we get to the Strand subclasses, and there's a whole host of very logical changes that I wish it launched with. The only reason that you didn't see people complaining about Strand like they did initially with Stasis is because Strand had some really fun to play high skill options with a high skill ceiling. Of course, they still had the Threadling clone spam later down the line. I mean, we know Threadlings were that strong to begin with. They were inconsistent to shoot even if you lined it up, because once they committed to the jump, they were somehow invincible, and it's just not an intuitive way to play against those things. They were super annoying, and even if they didn't land damage, you still had to deal with them or move from them, which made it a kind of high skill floor entry point option for players to abuse. The next thing to mention is the grapple, the hunter grapple. If you get shot by a hand cannon and see a hunter shoot the grapple point in the air to grapple at you, I'm convinced that there's nothing you can do if they're equipped with Sword Arachnid. If you shotgun them, they live because they have woven mail. If you slug them in the face, that's really unrealistic for you to line up every single time. Not to mention it's special ammo. If a hunter does that enough, or if you're playing a team of 3 hunters doing that, you literally don't have enough ammo to deal with that every single time. So the change to the grapple is they can no longer grapple at you, shoot a gun, and then grapple melee towards you with the shoulder charge. I thought that was such a terrible addition to Strand. When I first tried it out, I was like, is anyone else seeing this? Then they changed the actual shoulder charge, the Tempest Strike, the Arc Warlock melee, all of them to not work while sliding, shooting, and then activating it, but they left the grapple melee as it was, which was too hot from the beginning. I'm surprised it took this long for Strand Hunter to be dealt with, but it's being dealt with. Next up, we have Ensnaring Slam Hunter. They changed it from a radius spear shape of the detonation radius to now a cylinder with a smaller radius. That to me is huge, because this also felt like it was impossible to counter because it jarringly shifts your character to third person, which sometimes can block the sightline of your opponent. Then you get the in-air penalty and the hipfire penalty at the same time. It to me almost felt worse than getting frozen, because at this point I have enough experience to avoid getting frozen almost entirely. I'll get caught by a rogue cold snap that fuses with the floor or an oblivious teammate. But if somebody directly wants to freeze me, I feel so in control of the match. You can delay your jump in the air to deal with the cold snap, and as long as you build into some decent AE, you're going to be fine. The melee and the freeze rift, you bait with timing and fake aggression. You cannot do the same to the Strand Hunter kit, not even close, because they can put up a grapple point that they pump infinitely with the grapple. I guess now that changes, right? Because it has a limited amount of times that they can fake their grapple, but that's still a lot of fake aggression you have to put towards a Strand Hunter to get them to overcommit in a disadvantageous situation. If you get hit by a hand cannon, they fly at you with grapple, you lose. If someone throws a cold snap at you, you can jump while also moving away from it to avoid it entirely, or you can move towards it and start getting some aggression down. Strand Hunter can choose at any point in that grapple attempt to switch to the Ensnaring Slam, and now you have to deal with hipfire penalty and AE and the bad camera all at once. Hell no, I would rather deal with freezing any day of the week. This is such a good change. Threaded Spike. You're throwing an arc bolt at your opponents and it reduces their damage. Huh? That's too much. The only reason you don't see hunters running Strand 24/7 is because honestly, Void Titan's easier to use, and then the super isn't intuitive on Hunter. I still think it's really strong. You're just gonna have to spend some hours in Mayhem to be able to depend on it and be confident in your play with it and understand its limitations enough to tell your teammates what to do in the event that you pop a super. So I still think it's really, really good. It's just Void Titan is brainless by comparison, so it's better for majority of players, which is why you don't see it enough. I'll give credit where it's due. Walla, Hinra, friends of that nature, they're incredible with this class. They are playing it closer to the ceiling than most of the players in this game. But as other players start to do that too, and you start seeing it in every match, and you can't counter it, it's going to be extremely annoying. You just might not think it's annoying because you're not seeing it enough. If you had to play those type of players on repeat 24/7, you would very quickly start to align with what I'm talking about here on why these nerfs are logical. Anyway, I really had to expand that explanation there because I feel like some people are going to hear that I thought their favorite class getting nerfed was going too far. But when you really think about it, I think it's fine. I think that's it. Threat of warding got reduced woven mail orb pickup from 10 seconds to 5 seconds, which I personally don't get to abuse my anti-flinch helmet anymore as long when I pick up orbs, and that's okay. For all the other Strand nerfs, I'll take my own personal nerf. That's fine. Whatever. Let's move on to the... Is this armor article? I was previously on the abilities article. Yes, armor article. Okay, we have Prismatic works off the selected super. Somewhere in this blob of text. So what that means is if you use Mask of Bakris with the Silence and Squall selected, this is from the Prismatic Deep Dive article, and you choose, I believe, Marksman or Gambler's Dodge, I'm not sure if it's going to work with Acrobat, you will get the qualities of Bakris. But if you had Golden Gun equipped and Bakris equipped, you would just do your normal dodge, even if you had Bakris equipped. So you have to choose a Stasis super if you're using Bakris. And that could get really dangerous with all these combinations of aspects. So that was my takeaway. So you could use Bakris on Hunter with Invis or potentially Radiant. That sounds busted. Yes, there are a couple exotic combinations that also might be busted on the new class item, but for now, my brain goes to Bakris. That sounds crazy. The knockout change, implied powered melee effect, that's pretty significant for the future, but not right now. The next takeaway from this article for me is the exotic Artifice armor. You get to upgrade your exotics to now have an Artifice slot, which will juice my builds to new heights. And then, of course, more stuff. I'm not reading you this whole TWAB. You probably already listened to Aztecross read it. So I'm just giving you the highlights that I think matter in what I like in the game, which is mostly PvP, but sometimes it's PvE. I feel like I'm becoming more of a PvE YouTuber lately. You let me know what you think about that. You genuinely care my approach to PvE, guides and whatnot in the future. But yeah, I only care about PvE with how quickly it gets me back to PvP. So if I have to take a couple hours to learn an encounter, learn a class, gear my character up, I will do it because it ultimately saves time. And I think Destiny is too imbalanced of a game for me to truly care about performing good in PvE when good enough is still fast. So you probably won't see me going for a speedrun record, a world's first race, etc. because I simply don't care about PvE in its current state. For me to care about PvE, it has to have more of those Pantheon-style encounters with like the double Rolk. That has to be just like normal in the game. And they have to go crazy on the difficulty and the balance so that all aspects of the game start mattering and not just the cheese of the week that they forgot to balance in PvE. Personal opinion. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my rant and oversight, review of the highlights of this article and whatnot. I'm not editing this if I fail talking. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see y'all in the next. Oh, hold on. In the TWAB today, I finally get to play Destiny. Not just Destiny 2, I finally get to play Destiny after so many years. This is just a random picture that they put on the TWAB. Didn't even mention it. And you can see it's private match options. You can see a couple things here. You can see radar enabled is now an option. Ability charge rate is now an option. The special ammo system. We finally have real private matches, which means I don't have to play normal matchmaking anymore. I can start hosting private lobbies with some logical rule sets for competitive gaming, and I can start putting my money where my mouth is. I can start saying, all right, let's money match. This weekend, $100 winning team. These are the rules. Go practice. And I think I can actually get some takers there who would want to play this game for fun, and then I could show the highlights. Maybe we could start getting some community scrims going, because this is huge. This completely changes the game from unplayable to playable in one sweep of changes. That is incredible. Like, kudos to Bungie. This has been an ask for a decade at this point, but I'm glad we finally have it. Now, friends, I hope you have a good rest of your day, because with this news, I am certainly having a good rest of my day.